Welcome to the podcast. Today, we are joined by Alexis Papageorgiou, a media strategist and first principles thinker with over 16 years of experience in tech and crypto strategy. Alexis is known for mapping out products and crafting unique campaigns that push the boundaries of what's possible. In today's conversation, we will dive into the fascinating world of decentralized systems, AI driven creativity, and how new governance models like Futarchy could shape our future. We will also explore how Alexis is approaching the future of work, community building, and the ever changing digital landscape. So sit back, relax, and let's jump into this thought provoking discussion. So let's start with the first question. If someone stopped you at a cafe and asked, "Hey, what are you obsessed with right now?" What would you say?
Yeah, I think that answer is like very context based on the situation that I'm in right now, and every year that changes. I think my favorite, what am I obsessed with right now? I think that's a good question. In general, I'm obsessed with how can we, on a global scale, make the right decisions? How can we create systems that are really great for coordination, for truth, and for our harmonious living together? And how can we scale that, or maybe just use them on a local level? And then I'm very interesting. It's like, how can we explore that through technology? How can that be interesting for the average person? Like, how can that increase agency, and how can we create systems that are actually fairer, not only for, the top 1% or like the top 50%, but how can we create systems that are fair for everyone and exciting and new and interesting? And it's definitely an interesting world out there right now. So lots of stuff is changing, and that's part of the things that I'm really curious about. Yeah.
So, what are you currently experimenting with?
Yeah, I'm currently personally experimenting on, let's say I split into two things. Like, we could talk about that later too. It was like the agency that I'm running, where I explore like how can we use definitely AI and technology to make my life and my clients' life a little bit more interesting and easier. But on a personal level, there's so many changes that are happening through technological advancements, AI, crypto integrations, like the stuff that ideologically we wanted to have 10 years ago when crypto space came up. And it's like, oh, these are the things that are going to change on a global scale. And they didn't. Now just starting to get implemented, and now just there's an actual possibility to create systems. There are people behind it with monies. There's organizations that are actually putting their energy into a place where we can create vastly new systems. And some of them, they're like out of this world, and you're like, really creative developers came up with something and are giving us the opportunity now to try different new things that usually governments and big companies just have been the centralized authority to implement that, and it's very difficult on a global scale to implement that. So we've mentioned a few one in the intro. Futarchy is a democratic system that I find very interesting. Working with protocols instead of companies. These are things that I find very interesting. And if you're interested in any of these things, then we can go like further into that.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, Futurchy. So, what is it exactly? Like, it sounds like a word came out of a sci-fi novel.
It
So,
does,
what?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think that the word futarchy is not really it's not good for marketing yet. I hope that they will change it,
Yeah.
and then I'll find a different one. Yeah. But it's futarchy is a radical concept, and it's like a 0 to 1 alternative to some governance models that we have currently. But I've been watching this closely for the past years, and then recently some projects came up that brought it back on the map, where I find this is really interesting. So basically, futarchy separates the values, like what we want, from the beliefs. It's like, how do we get there? So traditionally, we have governments, we vote for our representatives, and then it's a long process, and how to create bills where we put in things that we need and are part of the public discourse, and are going through a process that is highly it needs a lot of compromises between all these different parts in order to then execute something that is maybe not the thing that we actually want, but is like a a toned down or watered down version of something, and then we have a specific bill, and then we need to execute that, and then the execution is like a completely different parts. So Futarchy flips that and says, okay, what do we want to achieve first? Like, what is the goal that we want to achieve? And we look at the markets and create a prediction market, and then let people vote based on the outcomes. So let's say, for example, instead of creating a massive bill that increases the size of the government, where we say, like, we collect taxes and then we redistribute these taxes in order to help people with specific parts, let's say unemployment. Let's focus on specific outcomes. We want to decrease unemployment by 3% in 3 years, and we put specific actions plan up for a vote, and then prediction markets vote with their own money. So experts in the field, people who are interested, people who have done the research, they can go into this field, into the prediction market, and say, I'm really curious about this. I have done my research and I believe this is the best outcome, and vote with their money on the specific outcome. And that has to be very specific and can be tied to a specific outcome. And then we see maybe the plan in order to execute this, now that we have people who have skin in the game, who put their mouth, their money where their mouth is, maybe that makes more sense. And then you can test the outcomes with like real-time data. And it's much more decentralized instead of like a centralized authority. So it's a much more democratic way in order to execute things. It's not a perfect way, but it's a really interesting thing that we can test on a global scale or on a local scale, like with small DAOs. And even companies can try that instead of like a powerful decision from one person. Could be like a prediction market that says who would be the best CEO for this and this company, and prediction markets make the best outcome, and people vote on that, and the one that makes the most sense can be voted in.
So, like, do they get financial returns on their money as well?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and like if you vote for it on a prediction market, then you basically vote on the most likely outcome, and then the people who vote on the least likely outcome with their money lose that bet, and the people who make the smartest decisions win that bet.
Yeah, that makes sense. And is the prediction market based on crypto, or it can be anything?
It can be anything. There are projects right now on the market. Crypto is just the easiest solution, because with crypto you don't have a gatekeeper. You're permissionless, and you don't need someone who goes into to set your barrier and says like you can't do that, right? So it's anonymous, and you vote with your money, right? You don't need to play the status game and say like I make the best decisions. Look at my stack. But there's a good example that happened just recently with like there was a great example right now in the presidency in America, where we have like a centralized institution that collects all the votes and then predicts who's going to be the next president. And if you look at the polling market statistics, you could see that in these places where specific votes were happening that were like on the verge, you could see hours before some states that were flipping and weren't really secured for Republicans, that could see flipping earlier, because the people that were that were stationed in these states had this information beforehand and voting on their own ideas with their own money on the market. So you could see the switch happening a little bit earlier on the prediction markets than they were actually happening on TV, which is something, if you look at the real-time data, that can be really helpful on making decisions. So crypto is just the easiest and fastest solution, because you can just permissionless, just log in, connect your wallet, say like, I really believe in this personal outcome, and then put your money in there, and then see what the outcome is earlier in real time than the actual centralized organizations that may not always be correct, or have their personal agenda also inside of it.
I do think that they might be more effective than normal government systems, but I think we need to test it first. It's an experimental stage
and
right now.
we're testing it right now, and this is the interesting phase right now. I mean, people say a lot, it's the wild west. Crypto is the wild west, but I actually welcome a lot of projects that say we're trying this. A few years ago, there was the DAO that spectacularly failed because they just believed in ultimate democracy, and people can just create projects, and they make their own security audits. And of course, we all know this project got hacked, and then the whole Ethereum community came in and split into two factors, and the forking created the Ethereum Classic chain and the continuation of the chain right now. But right now with prediction markets, there's a bit of an extra one where you have to vote with your money and not just vote with the amount of tokens that you bought back then, or on prediction markets instead of these projects themselves. And I think 2 weeks ago there was another test. MTN Capital was a fund that just was created testing exactly that. Is like, how can we invest in projects based on prediction markets? So it's a new project, and on their website you can just invest into projects. Super interesting. So I'm going to keep my eye on that. I don't know where this will go, but but the data that we can collect on real world events based on prediction markets can help us make decisions. In the end, what we want is truth, right? So I recently saw a statistic that said belief in American media is down at like 10%, and this is like a drastic decision, and like this is catastrophic. So if trust in your systems in media delivery is 10%, then that means that you can't trust these information, and you then believe that anybody has some sort of a bias, or anybody has some sort of a perspective, an angle that they're coming from. So what you want is like to be closer to the truth. And in this world, there's no such thing as truth, right? We're not talking about mathematics. We're talking about like social behavior and movement of the markets and where people are going. And a lot of that is predicted by what is the media saying and where's the media thinking that we are going towards. And we know that just one tweet can have like a specific outcome that influences, one tweet of Donald Trump, you can see all that has a huge effect on the market. So me as a person, or anybody else as a person, you want to be closer to the truth. And prediction markets have been right now successful in outperforming these systems in a truth-seeking behavior. But it doesn't mean that it's the ultimate truth, and they're changing. But they're changing based on information that also gets fed in. So, but the more information gets fed in, the closer you get to what could be like a perfect outcome.
So what's one real world scenario where you think they could actually outperform traditional governance?
It's a great question. I think it could in general replace a lot of decision making that is happening on a government level. And I also think that you could use these things that are based in smaller scale areas where you have like a big company and make internal company decisions based on the people's votes inside those companies. But what I personally would like to see it is let's use that on a global scale. Let's use that on a company, on a government level scale, on a nation scale. And it doesn't necessarily have to happen in, let's say we take a country like the USA and say like, let's change our democratic level, democratic voting system. But people get together right now anyway, right? If you look at what Balaji is doing with the network state, people are forming countries based on their ideology and common interests, So whatever they're interested in, it comes like the idea first, and then the land second is what, a lot of organizations or countries that started out have been doing wrong. And around a similar idea, you can have many different governance levels and ideas. And within a DAO, you can make a lot of different decision-making processes. And it doesn't have to be that you use Futarchy for exactly that. But I believe that, around a common interest, you could create an organization or a nation state and use the Futarchy model for a more democratic way for decision-making and closer to the truth.
You have been also exploring things like Holochain and decentralized coordination. How do you think about protocols and versus companies when it comes to organizing people?
Yeah, I think this is like a similar area. All of these things that we have explored so far in the conversation were kind of decentralized ways how you do governance or how to run companies or decision-making processes are happening. And Holochain is one of the projects that I find very curious, that have been trying to flip the switch on how can we create a new internet. Right? So the internet itself is also like centralized, and it all goes through like specific data data
Yeah.
points and gatekeepers. And then in the end, it all accumulates in basically a few companies that store all the information, that are gatekeepers for all our data, and then make money through you. I mean, that's basically what Meta is
Yeah.
doing with the
Yeah.
right. So what do we have? We have like Facebook collecting your pictures, your ideas, your data, sharing that with other companies, making money through that. But you're not the owner of this data, right? If Facebook
Yes.
decides at one point, like, we don't want you on this platform for whatever reason, and we see that the political market is changing just in the last year. So what is accepted last year is not the same as what is accepted this year. You could be deplatformed, which can be basically, digital death for you. So it's a server-centric system where, like, we have the servers in the middle, and everybody is accessing and feeding this server in the middle. Holochain is and what Holochain with as a protocol with Holo is doing in that system, or I think they changed their name to Allograph, is basically saying everything that you do is written on your own chain, and you are responsible for the content that you create, which also means that whatever you're creating, you will be rewarded for the things that you do. And it has all sorts of other implication as like a decentralized system. So instead of thinking like we have one place where all the information is stored, and with single point of failure, if that gets attacked, we can flip the internet script basically around and saying we have a beehive of networks, of decentralized networks that share the information with each other and operate within their framework and within their network, but are happy, easily be able to go to another system, go to another network, share information with other people without getting attacked from one side. So in the Facebook example, that could be, I create my posts, I upload my ideas, I upload my pictures on my own chain, and I decide to give that information to Facebook. But if I don't agree with what Facebook is doing, I can remove access to Facebook from my ideas, right? Because my information is not stored on Facebook servers anymore. It's stored on a decentralized network where people are interacting with each other and reward each other and pay each other for storing that information.
So what are the major
Does
challenges
that make
here?
sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Like it's like it's kind of like peer-to-peer networking.
It is like, think about what BitTorrent
Yeah,
and the
BitTorrent,
torrent
etc.
market
Yeah.
changed, yeah, but we don't have a global scale system in place yet where we say, well, how do we not torrent a specific data, and also the negative implication that comes with it because it's illegal and all these points.
Yeah.
But how can we create like a system that works for everyone? For example, let's put WhatsApp on a decentralized server. There's no point that any company needs to have access to my private communication between you
Yes.
and me, right? So that can be like an encrypted, information that gets stored between a network of people.
But I think there might be some challenges here. Like even with torrent, there were a lot. Yeah, I think it was because there were not enough people on the torrent sometimes. Like there are download speed issues. If there are not many, what was it called? Seeders. Yeah. Does it use a
True.
similar?
And I think that can be changed, right? So for some things, we don't need fast access, to like information, but some things are, access that everybody accesses the same stuff, like a tweet is not big in data, is not big in information, right? So you could easily store that one tweet in different location in the world, and wherever people are, the closest to the next server, they can just access that, right? But, speed gets faster, internet gets easier, access gets increased, and access to bigger and bigger data is just easier and easier. Moore's law is in hardware as well as in software. But
I do
it's true.
understand it now.
There's still like a lot of difficulties, and we just need to play around and test it. And that's what I love about the crypto space, is that people are willing to fail. I mean, the libertarian dream started out, and now it's like a lot of stuff is centralized and organized, and there's big corporation, BlackRock just created an ETF, it's like
Yeah.
But I'm celebrating all the people who are trying. We need a
I
couple
think
of failures.
I think that's it. That's what it's all about. Like in everything, you have to try, fail, and then you succeed.
Yeah, and like if I go online on Twitter,
Hmm.
or sorry, on if I go online on X, it's now that every other day I see some random clickbait post where it says like, this
Yeah.
new thing
Hmm.
is going to change AI forever. This is
Hmm.
revolutionizing. Da, 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 da. And
Hmm.
and and new things are popping out, not like every other year, but
Yeah.
every other day.
Yes. Yeah, like
And
with
the
AI, yeah, every day there is a post that this is mind blowing, this is mind blowing.
yeah,
But I think
every other day.
but I think it is growing at a faster pace. Like I have not seen anything grow at this pace.
I do feel that in some areas it's absolutely stunning how
Hmm.
fast the progress is.
Yes.
Like when, people can basically can create
Hmm.
content that is indistinguishable from
Yes.
a human interaction, right? From
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
everybody can, who has, a little bit of money can suddenly
Hmm.
become one of the best artists in the world by
Yeah.
just replicating,
Hmm.
but and at the same time, I find still like a lot of flaws in LLM systems where
Hmm.
they just are not able to think on their own, and
But I
they
think they
don't
are
they don't get the
getting very
context.
intelligent. Like latest ChatGPT versions, I'm really mind blown by their intelligence. Like every time I
That's true.
ask it something, it comes up with an intelligent answer. Like earlier, it used to be not very intelligent. It used to be like very generic, but now it's becoming more and more like really intelligent.
Absolutely, and I think at the moment we still have to redirect the LLMs in always in the right direction, right? We have to
Hmm.
have
Yes.
intelligent prompts and have
Hmm.
to basically tell the AI, okay, this is what I want, and
Hmm.
it gives you the answer. And if you haven't prompted it correctly or in the best way,
Hmm.
you need
Hmm.
2, 3, 4, 5 iterations in
Yes.
order to get
Hmm.
the place where you want to be. But this is
Hmm.
not where we want to go. Like where we want to go is like
Hmm.
where we direct agents who direct other agents, right? So it's
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
it's a replication where I give an AI a task, and from
Hmm.
that moment, that person is my personal manager, who from that
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
place redirects other AIs, and if they prompt them and they do
Hmm.
mistakes, they
Yeah.
can accordingly, move the thing
Correct
into a
them.
right place. And,
Correct
and we're not there
themselves.
yet, but I
Yeah.
think we can get there pretty soon.
Yeah, we are getting there. I think recently there were some exciting agents coming up. Like there was this Manus one, and even very recently there was one which can even like place calls for you. Like you can tell it to book a vacation, and it will do all the calls for you using AI. I don't know how safe
Yeah,
that is, but yeah.
it's true. This is what I'm super interested privately. So I'm testing out a
Hmm.
lot of services, and I
Hmm.
just watched this. Like I love Greg Eisenberg. He's a wonderful
Hmm.
resource for AI information, and
Hmm.
he was doing an interview with the founder of Lindy, where I think Lindy is one of the leading platforms for
Hmm.
creating AI automation.
Hmm.
AI automations, and they were just making a preview on something that they were using, some sort of service that they were using, and they were explaining, oh, so our AI also does calls, and they were showing that in the video that
Hmm.
like, okay, here's the call that it actually calls the
Hmm.
restaurant in order to
Yes.
place an order.
Hmm.
And by surprise, the person that was on the phone in that surprise phone call answering was also an AI. So they were like two AIs talking to each other. So
Yeah.
it's getting more and more common, and we will see that
Hmm.
a lot more. I mean, Elon Musk said
Hmm.
something like in a few years there will be more AI robots than there will be actual humans. But
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
means actual
Robotics.
physical robots. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also very excited for robots. Like I've seen those Tesla bot videos, Boston Dynamics videos. They are very exciting. And I'm really excited for it when they will be able to like do the work in our home and we will be able to focus on other stuff. But it does raise a question about will we even have a purpose at a stage where AI can do everything? Like robots are working in your home and they can even like work on research. I saw like Claude is working on
Hmm.
that, creating optimizing their
Yeah.
models for research. Also like self-improving models. Recently I read a research paper on that.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a big question. It's like, what are we going to do if AI just takes all of our jobs and we don't actually have to work anymore?
Hmm.
The idea is that everybody can be a creator, an artist,
Hmm.
whatever. But I think what will be closer to the truth is that suddenly everybody will be able to. We can complain all the time, right? So suddenly there's space that
Hmm.
we can complain about all the things.
Hmm.
But what you mentioned earlier is like the meaning about this
Hmm.
is like if everything gets taken away from us,
Hmm.
it can be a great thing because
Yeah.
if you look back 100 years ago, how difficult it is just to survive, and now
Yeah.
most of the things that get implemented through AI will positively impact our lives
Yes.
for the better. But do we want that, right? So if you ask yourself, do you want AI to take everything away from you? It's like, no, I want to be able to create meaningful work in my life. And AI can be a wonderful coach, a wonderful support, a wonderful assistant, and hopefully a wonderful agent. And then hopefully we all make the right decisions in order to create meaningful work or meaningful moments for ourselves.
Yeah, I think like content creation and art, everything of that sort is meaningful. Basically, wherever the emotions are involved. Like AI can only pretend that it has emotions, but I don't think it can actually have emotions. So yeah, from my perspective, I think anything that involves emotions, creation, even like becoming a movie actor or something, that is still valuable.
It is, and it depends on the right decisions that we make then, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a beautiful story of a friend of mine who said when he was younger and they were a bit poorer, he had to wake up every day at 6 a.m., chop some wood, put it in the oven, and make the house warm for everyone else. Because and it's not a decision that he can make. Like he has an impact. Like the decision not to act has an impact on everybody else. Everybody will be cold. So the decision for meaning, what does it mean for you to act in this sense, has been made for you. And I'm definitely one of the people that has seen the effect on, like, you have to create your own meaning, because I grew up in a society where, like, I could travel much easier as my parents, and I could just not work for a while and just travel the world and do things for myself. And if I choose to do that and do things that are harmful, that are not meaningful for me, or I'm living someone else's life, it creates all sorts of other different pain.
Yes.
So, I've been forced, in order to go through this journey, deciding what is the right thing for me. And with AI, it's like there's all this time that we now have. I hope that we all make the right decisions and that are, meaningful for us, and not just like, hey, here's all this space where now we can complain about everything,
Yeah, but what do you think about things like UBI, like universal basic income?
I've seen some concepts that are in a community space that could work. In any case, all sorts of investment into a group, and then create some sort of a fail-safe if something goes wrong, or basically use these funds for whatever kind of services. It doesn't have to be a payout, like a monthly payout, right? It doesn't have to be that. It can also be some sort of other supportive systems. I think that can work. But on the other side, I feel like UBI as a general system, if we let the government run it, I think it will always lead to the same thing, that people would pay themselves whatever they need, and then if it's not enough, then they say, okay, we just need more and more and more and more. And then the distribution costs a lot of money, and it will always lead into, like, the person in charge uses that or weaponize that in order to get the votes for what they want.
No, but like if they decide a minimum limit, like everyone will get this much money, everyone will get same amount of money. And if they want more money, they can do any of the stuff that is remaining.
Yeah, and theoretically, it all sounds nice. We all need, like, to cover our basics. And theoretically, that's what the government is for. We all pay taxes and we all get something in return. I live in Germany. It's one of the highest taxed countries in the world. And we pay a lot of money in order to create infrastructure. And the things that I don't see is, like, free transportation. That's something where I feel like an alternative to UBI would make a lot more sense. It's like, stop people from flying so much, and then have them use free trains. That would be a great way for me to use, like, universal way of putting money into a system and then giving back to the people. But if I just get free money, that's sometimes not an incentive. Like, there's so many arguments for that and against that. I personally believe that in the times where I sometimes was forced in order to act because of scarcity of money, I sometimes make better decisions than if I'm fed by a system. But it only happens, you need some sort of basic coverage.
Yeah, I think that is a valid point. But if there is nothing left because of AI, like if it is even doing research, it is even taking care of, for example, making the species multiplanetary, it is like doing everything. So you will just get, like, decided income. Everyone will get a decided income.
Yeah, if that's going to happen, then we have a lot of room to complain. People will go by default going to something to complain about something else. But I don't know. Like, I think sometimes you get information and then you can make some sort of a prediction about how the future is going to be. But I think very few people have predicted that LLMs are going to be the first implementation of AI,
Yes.
and that this is going to be, and that 5-year predictions are impossible to do. 1-year predictions
Yes.
are really difficult to do.
Yeah.
Because things are moving so fast.
Yes.
Even like a 3-month prediction,
Yes.
it's very tricky. But it's definitely going to change the way that we are going to work.
Yeah, that
And
is for sure.
the type of work is going to change drastically. So
Yes.
at the moment, there's so many AI products that are on the market, and that could potentially change so many jobs, but the adaptation is really, really slow. Like for the average user, in order to implement that. And I think that the big change will come when we have agents running other AIs, as I mentioned before.
Yeah, I think this year it
Because
is very big for that. Yeah, they have started to
because
come up this year.
if we have that, because if we have agents that are running others, then we don't have to learn it ourselves. It's basically the moment where a plug and play, and then it runs the system. Where the prompt is create a marketing strategy for my product or service and execute it for me too, right? So it completely takes over another person's job, and it helps you out. And I think that's the big change, the next big change. But it's also just a prediction. I could be
but
wrong.
it is already happening as well. Like recently, the image generation update from ChatGPT, it can literally do everything to an image. Like if you want it in a different style, if you want to change something. But there are some challenges there, like it always creates an image from scratch. It cannot really edit the image which we are generating.
Right. At the moment, it's not replacing you. It's just assisting you. Right?
Yes. And no, but for me, like I used to hire designers to create thumbnails, but now ChatGPT is creating very good thumbnails.
Nice. Yeah.
Even though I have to use face swap so it can get my face right.
Yeah.
But it's getting there, I think. Like if you want something without a face, you can literally create anything using ChatGPT. You don't need Canva anymore or Photoshop. Like if you want to create a poster or something, you can just create it using that.
Yeah, it brings other problems with it. So I see that, and I hear that from other designers too. And in my field, I work a lot with designers and developers to create the systems. But whenever you're adapting to a new system, there's always an adaptation phase, and it's also bound to the limitation of it, right? So theoretically, you can say like you can use ChatGPT or DALL-E or some other services to replace your designs, but they work really well on the general scale, but in detail, there's always difficulties, right? If you want specific details to be implemented, it can bring you down into a rabbit hole where you feel like it's not understanding you. So we're not at this level where like whenever you're asking an LLM, it's like, why do you think that way? Then it basically falls apart, and it can't tell you that. So if we don't fully understand how do you actually work, and our prompting only gets us closer and closer and closer and closer, it's not fully there yet. So in the detail, it falls apart.
Yeah, if it is like ultra detailed, because even some level of detail I have tried and it works. But I do think that like it does not mean that graphic designing is dead. It just means that top graphic designers will always remain.
Right.
But only the one who just like maybe create designs for $5 or something like that, they will be replaced.
True. And it cuts down your operating time by a lot, right? So if you a good example for exactly that is like if you go to specific companies that say we're going to create a one prompt landing page for you, just prompt your landing. They're never perfect.
No, but I also tried that as well. It was perfect for my website. Like for app conversion studio, it is created using Claude in one prompt.
And it works wonder with like creating the structure or the framework or providing you with like lorem ipsum direct information and text that you could use or modules. And the perfect way is to like use that to assist, like taking them into a design software and then edit and adapt and do the details, right?
No,
So
but like
70%, 80% could be there, and then
like for the front end, it was like 100% using Claude. It really did everything.
Yeah, exactly. I was talking about the design side and like a full all-inclusive part, but but for exactly that, anything text-based, strategy-based LLMs are perfect.
Yes, but it's about specialization. Like specializations will still be valuable.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you this: like, if you think back 1 year or 2 years ago, how and put it into percentage, like how much has AI made your life easier? Just like 20% or like 50%? Like how much creativity boost did you have? Like
Yes, I think it is a
on an
lot.
actual, the one is the idea, and then the one is the actual execution where you like using it
Yeah.
every day, you know?
I would say it's 100%. Like it literally doubled my productivity.
Mm,
Even the rate of content I produce, everything has like exponentially grown
mm,
because of AI. Yeah, I do see that it is making people more productive, and it is basically making everything go faster. Like right now at the pace it is growing, it is just going to even grow that pace because it is even making those people working on AI more productive.
yeah, I'm happy for you. I mean, that's great, right?
And what about you? Has it helped you that much?
I think I'm wasting a lot more time since AI because I just love playing with it, right? So whenever there's a new feature, you know, all the time that I could actually spend working, I'm actually using it to play and see like what is the best outcome. And then later I use that in order to like implement it to my day. Like last week when ChatGPT o3 came out, I'm like, oh wow, this is suddenly like such an increase in IQ inside of an
Yes.
AI. I'm like, okay, and then just give it some really random, you know, oh, I have this dogma, like things that I can where I believe in this, but I don't have the facts to prove it.
Yes.
Let's just play with it and then and put some prompts in it and just see like, oh, this is the, you know, this is your interpretation of that. Like, oh, I had a bit of a
Yeah,
different
I also do that a lot.
uh
Like yesterday, I think I
yeah.
did not do any work. I was just talking to ChatGPT about some
Mhm.
dilemmas that I was having. But I used to do that earlier as well, but just using my thinking.
Yeah.
So it used to take more
And,
time even in that to get the clarity
yeah,
on something. Like, why do I believe this?
right.
And so debating made it a lot faster for me.
True. And faster and easier accessible, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
one of the things that I find interesting is like coaching and therapy. I mean, I wouldn't condone someone to replace your therapist with
Yes.
ChatGPT,
Yeah, but it helps
but
a lot.
just
Yeah.
feed it with activities and conversations that you have and give an output. And then maybe
Yes.
you see your own bias and it gives you like, oh,
Yes.
these are the things where somebody's actually manipulating you or you
Yeah.
manipulating them and you haven't seen it before can be extremely valuable in order for communication tactics.
Yeah, like I've stopped journaling. I just everything that happens in my day, I just write it to ChatGPT. Like if something is
Right.
bothering me, and it basically helps me reflect. So
Right.
with every line, I get a reflection on that, and at the end of the day, I just add all of that in my journal.
Right. And if we bring it back to the things that we discussed earlier, it's like if we put in so much information and your own thoughts, like people were afraid in the past, it's like,
Yes.
I hope nobody sees my internet search history. I think now we're going to a
Yeah.
completely different level. If you get arrested and they say like, okay, open up your ChatGPT,
Yes.
um, I think you don't want that, right? You really don't
Yes.
want that. So that's why I truly believe in like decentralization and there are people who are building like really compact
Yeah.
system LLMs that are really small and can be used offline or just
Yes.
on your phone, like these
That
kind of
is very good
services.
as well. I've
Or
tried that as well. I was
right.
thinking about create like instead of using ChatGPT and sharing my personal information, I should just use an open source model. And they are very good, like 7 billion
Yeah, at
parameter
the moment
models.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, for most of the things
Yeah, most of the
the
things.
models are really good. And then also there are softwares that I find highly interesting. Nillion, it's a company that are doing amazing work that are basically in between those models. So if you want to use the Chinese LLM and you don't want to give your information to whoever is on the other side, then
Yes.
you can put a like a protocol in the middle that decentralizes and anonymizes all that information. And I think that's where we're going to. Like in the future, you wouldn't want a centralized LLM to have
Yes.
all your ideas.
Yes.
You would want a decentralized version that is secure, safe, and encrypted.
But how will it like result with companies? Like, will companies be in favor of this, or it's in their loss if we look at it from the company's perspective?
I don't think today there's one way to do things. And you can just like use different ways in order to execute in the same task. And often it doesn't matter like how you do it, unless you break the law, right? In Europe, the consumer rights and the protection of companies and consumers is much stronger than in other countries. So there
Yes.
are even like rules against just using and including LLMs into like meetings without permission, these kind of things. Storing company data on LLMs that are where the server is in another country. These are really important questions that we have to ask ourselves. Like privacy is the big one. Security and
Yes.
safety is a very big one. And things are moving so fast that sometimes we, with our current system, we don't have the time to just sit down, look at it and say, well, is that what you're doing actually legal? Like Meta did with
Yes.
Llama, they fed all the
Yes.
books in the world from Lipkin, and they figured out it was illegal. But now it's done, and
Yes.
are you going to reverse that? No, they're not.
Yeah, even like with ChatGPT as well, creating another artist style as well. Like a lot of companies are doing it wrong, I think, not paying the artists and just using their data to train their AI.
Yeah.
You are building a decentralized creative agency right now. What are you trying to do differently? Whether that's in terms of the team, the way you work with clients, or how you approach marketing.
Yeah. I think I've been in some ways always running it like this, but with the tools that we have available right now. So the company that I'm doing, I'm basically freelancing myself, right? I take on projects, I do strategy, and if I need other people, I bring them in and then act as a project manager for these type
Yes.
of projects.
Yeah, I'm also kind of
And
doing the same thing. Yeah.
and you can distribute the work
Yeah.
in so many different places, and you can hire people from outside. So
Yes.
why not use that? So, and I
Yes.
think in the future we're going to do a lot more project based. People wake up, they're going to
Yes.
have on their phone somebody wants a job from you. I mean, you're doing
Yes.
Fiverr, right?
Yes.
This is already kind of
Yeah.
working that way, right?
Yeah. I did
Um,
like, I think that exact thing, like a year ago or something. I think I
yeah,
even made a post on that. Yeah. It was exactly
yeah,
that. People will wake up, they will have a dashboard
yeah.
where they can get orders from multiple platforms, their own websites, and everything.
Right. Yeah, and I don't even think only entrepreneurs are going to be like this.
Yes.
Where like you
Yeah.
have to be independent, but
Yes.
we're allowing remote work more
Yes.
often. We're allowing different systems. And I recently saw, I want to share this. Like I recently saw this meme where it says you can just do things, and it's like low IQ and high IQ are like you can just do things, and in the middle you're like, I need to have a diploma, I need to do this, I need to have like strategy, I
Yes.
need to do
Yes.
this course. But in the end, it's just that, right?
Yeah.
Like you can
It's all
just do
about doing.
things. And
Yeah.
in my past, I've made the experience that I work for companies and they say, okay, this is how we work with people. And in response, I say like, oh, that's not the best way that I work, and I don't have to work with you. But if you want to work with me, I think it's best for you and for me if we try this model.
Yes.
And they adapted to that. And it won't always work, and you
Yes.
have to earn that way in order for you to do that. But sometimes we just need like a change in a system where people see this is not possible towards, oh, this is actually possible. Like what happened during Corona is like, no, you have to come to the office and everybody needs to be managed by a manager. And it's like, oh, you don't,
Yes.
things actually work out, and maybe even better if you work from
Yes.
home and organize your work around your own time. And maybe
Yes.
that's even better for like employee motivation and like health, and like that you can go to the doctor without having to actually plan that with your manager, and just like get the work done.
But I do think it's more difficult to get like orders that way. Like you have to do marketing. But if you are doing a job, you just get the work and you get it done. But if you become independent, you have to do all the marketing and everything, which is
Yeah.
kind of like what entrepreneurs do. So maybe it is just for entrepreneurs or something, because it
Yeah.
does like force you to become an entrepreneur.
Or like an entrepreneur, right? Like
Yes.
inside of
Yeah.
a company, have an entrepreneurial thinking, right?
Yes.
I have to say, I have like 7 more minutes. I hope
Okay.
that's okay,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I need to go into another meeting. But
Yeah, you
I
mentioned
love
that. Yeah,
this.
sorry.
This is
Yeah, sorry. I think it is taking more time than expected. I'm asking too many questions, maybe.
we can
I'm
talk
really
all
sorry for
night.
that.
Like this is super
Yeah.
interesting, right?
Yes, I'm really enjoying this. That's why I think I'm asking even out of context questions like the ones we did not even discuss. Yeah, I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm
Yeah.
I'm open. If like a few
Yeah.
more minutes, I'm
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah. What's one surprising way it made you more creative, and one thing about it that gives you pause?
What was the second sentence?
What's the one thing that gives you pause?
Pause,
Yes.
as in that calms me down, or?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
What calms you
Yeah, these
down?
are
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Calms me down. Okay, two different questions. I think one of the biggest. This is so out of context, but one of the biggest things that keeps me creative and healthy and stable in my life is dancing. I'm a big dancer, and I do swing and jazz dance from the 1920s and 1930s, and I do this several times a week. Imagine like Disney's Jungle Book, what the monkeys
Yeah.
are dancing. That's basically what I'm doing, and it like dancing is a way to engage with other people in a specific framework, in a context that is completely fun and creative, and that helps me then translate that into work, and also the people that I meet around that. It's very off topic, but like
Yeah.
I think it's the number one thing that
Oh,
contributes you to a
I also
healthy
like enjoy singing.
life.
Yeah, yeah. I think it is good to have a hobby outside of your work so that you can wind down and
Yeah.
not always like think about work.
Yeah, absolutely. Super important. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, just I think there are a lot of questions left, but I think I will just end it with the two more questions. Is that okay?
Sure.
So, what is your prediction on AGI? What do you think most people miss or seriously underestimate?
Okay, I think this is I'm not qualified to
Yeah,
answer this question. Like,
yeah, we don't need your like like
yeah,
expert opinion, but just your
yeah,
personal opinion. What do you think about it?
yeah,
If you're comfortable sharing.
yeah. I think we will go away from typing and
Hmm.
reading in a chat format, but it's
Hmm.
going to be like a voice in your head where you communicate, and then an agent who interacts on your behalf and who executes codes and writes codes and does math for you on the back end.
Hmm.
And also seemingly integrates with all sorts of different platforms. So going away from like I
Hmm.
log into Spotify in order to hear music, or I log into this kind of software in order to do this task and then bring them over, but they're like seamlessly interact with each other through an agent that allows that, where you just say, like Alexa already does, it's like, hey, play this song,
Yes.
just working, hopefully.
Hmm. What belief or framework do you hold today that would have completely shocked your past self a year or two ago?
That's a great question. I think if you allow me to change it, it's like not something that shattered me 1 year ago, but maybe 10 years ago or something.
Yeah,
But
that
like
will also work.
I truly believe this, like you can just do things.
Yeah, I also
I
believe the
truly
same.
believe that like
Yeah,
we put our own limitations on what is possible,
yep,
and there's
yep.
sometimes good reasons for that, and sometimes
Hmm.
our limitation turns into who we can become.
Yes,
But like I'm trying to operate in my life a little bit more under this perspective that like if I don't believe, if I'm not afraid of it, and
yes.
if there's
Hmm.
no gatekeeper in it, and let's just see where it goes,
Yes, I kind of do
you
the
can
same
just
in
do
my life.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also just do things. Like I have never like formally studied any of this, what I'm talking about right now.
Yeah.
I just learn everything from the internet. I think thank you for taking this much time. And I'm really sorry for asking maybe too many questions than expected. It is
No,
taking
if I
a
would have
lot more
more
time.
time, I would actually
Yeah.
spend more time with you and answer more questions.
Yeah, I
Thank you
understand
for
that.
giving me the platform.
Yeah, thank you for joining. And finally, where can people go deeper into your work or connect with what you are building?
Just on the socials, like
Okay, I will add your like Twitter link in the description. Yeah.
wherever you're posting
Hmm.
this video, there's probably going to be an X account, or like my
Hmm.
website is
Yes.
alexis.garden.
Hmm.
Alexis.garden is my digital garden.
Hmm.
And then you can reach me on all socials.
Okay, I will add your X link and the website link in the description. So that's a wrap. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Alexis, this was a wild, thoughtful ride. I really enjoyed talking with you. And
Sure.
yeah, hope we speak again soon.
Sure. Same here. It was very interesting. Thanks for giving me
Yep.
the platform and allowing me to just share my
Yeah, no issues.
stupid ideas.
No, like they are not stupid. I find them very futuristic and rational. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, thank
Wish
you
you all
for
the
taking
best.
the time. Yeah, you too, all the best for all your projects. And I really wish like they succeed.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Have a great day.